Hello everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And Vince, we just posted the cast list for Season 3 of Who Reviews the Reviewers.
That's right. 8 people who are ready and just raring to go. They're on the edge of their seat. They're like, come on, give me a challenge. I want it.
And one of those people is going to get a chance to win. Well, they'll have a chance, but one of those people is going to win $400 at the end of the season. And what we thought we'd do today is go ahead and give the contestants, but also other folks on YouTube who might be considering reviewing, or people who are doing some novice reviews themselves that either didn't make it into the contest or didn't try to get in the contest, but maybe thought about it, or maybe are thinking about doing it for next year. We thought we'd maybe give out some reviewing advice today. This was Vince's idea, and I thought this was probably a good idea. Of course, we give reviewing advice all the time because we do the show Who Reviews the Reviewers, but you have to listen to a long set of deliberations for each episode to get any of that, and it's within the context of talking about somebody else's reviews. So we thought today we would kind of condense that a little bit, and
we discuss format, and I think that's part of the problem that some of the contestants really get into, that they don't know what a reviewing format is outside of what they've been doing with their own channels.
Yeah, and some of the criticism for the show, and it's a fair criticism, is that sometimes at the beginning contestants aren't real sure what we're looking for. Just us being the judges, and of course we have 3 other judges, but they're pretty much looking for what we're looking for too, So we obviously, there's 5 of us, and the point is to disagree to a degree, but I think that we all have a pretty similar views on what reviewing should be. So anyway, Vince, why don't you start us off? What do you think when you get started, like doing your first review? Like you've never done this before. What do you think is the most important thing to consider right out the gate after you've made your choice of what you're going to review?
I think the most important thing that I always harp on is objectivity and making sure that you say good and bad things about something. In my mind, and this is one of the things that I really got onto people for in the last 2 seasons, that if you do not say positive and negative things about it, if you do not consider weaknesses and you do not consider strengths, if you're just focused on, well, I really like it, now it's a lot of fun for me, and all you're really going from is from your perspective, and you're not trying to pull pieces of evidence from what you're saying, or from what you saw, or what you read, or whatever, to support your claims, then you're not actually doing a review, you're doing a recommend. And there's a difference.
And if you're only looking at negative things, then at that point it's not a review, it's more of a rant, really. Although I would make the case in my own defense for a couple of things I can think of off the top of my head, of things that I've reviewed that I had really nothing good to say, is that sometimes you will review a thing that you don't think there's anything good about at all, Because you also don't want to necessarily, well, not even necessarily, you don't want to grasp at straws. You don't want to say, well, there's a format for this, there's a formula, and so I must say good things and bad things. If there's only good things, or there's only bad things, maybe those aren't the best subjects for review in the first place. That's why something like Rewind is difficult, because I said I'd review all of them. So sometimes you'll have shows that are better than others, because it's just like, if I had just picked this, I wouldn't have. If I were just picking things, I wouldn't review them. Like Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. I gave that movie a 0. I couldn't find anything good enough to actually give it points. And if it had just been like I'm just picking something to review, I wouldn't have reviewed that. But it's a superhero film, so I had to.
Maybe we can say that it's not just about selection. I would say that it's fair. It's a fair statement to say that there might be nothing that's redeemable about this movie or book or whatever. But when you are showing negative things, when you're saying this book has this problem, what you ought to do is pull evidence. You have to be able to support your claims in order for your review to actually be a review. Otherwise, it's just an opinion. So if you have support, like you say, well, there's this particular thing about Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, that supports this claim, and I say that the cinematography in this movie's bad because of this, there has to be things from the movie that you can pull and reference and say, this gives me credibility.
Yeah, and I'd like to clarify something that you said. Reviews are an opinion. I mean, that's what
exactly,
they are, but they're a considered opinion. That's what we're looking for. Because really, I feel like I would be wasting a person's time if I were to show you a comic book and say, this is great, you should read it, put it down, and turn off the camera. Even in a review, even in a recommend, I don't do that, you know. And, you know, let's be fair, every week Vince and I do a show called Recommends. Those aren't reviews. And we know that they're not. We don't try to pass those off as reviews. You know, we're telling you, this is a thing that I kind of like, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Maybe you'll want to go out and take a look at it. You know, that's an entirely different thing, and we feel like there's a place for that. That's why we do it. Some things you don't really want to have to go into a whole critical analysis of it. You just want to tell people this is cool and you should go take a look at it. That's a different thing. But what we're talking about with reviews is something where you tell us how it made you feel when you looked at it, and then what redeeming and non-redeeming qualities it has, like you said, based on evidence within the thing.
I think one thing you really ought to ask yourself, you have to have some introspection, whatever. You have to be able to have some insight into your own opinion. You have to stop and say, I didn't like that. First you should ask yourself why you didn't like that, and then you should say, what supports that claim, because you're allowed to not like things. There are things about movies that I like that Cap doesn't, that Cap likes that I don't, and we both will sit there for a while and just hit that tennis ball back and forth, just coming up with ideas about what claims or what things support our claims.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things that I feel like people fall short of. They don't support their claims. Now, I want to say this before I forget, because I just thought of this. I feel like in looking at some of the, I don't know this for certain, but in looking at some of the entries for who reviews the reviewers, when we say introduction and conclusion, we're not really talking about an introduction that's like, thanks for watching Geekvolution, yeah! I'm talking about, this is what we're reviewing. This is the point. By the way,
just for the record, that will never be one of our animated intros.
Oh,
you will not see a stick Vince going.
A stick Vince. I like this. Got a little hat on, some glasses. That would be hard to animate as a stick.
Okay, I'm not going to count out the possibility of an eventual stick Vince. I don't want to count that out.
But he's not going to be doing this and say thanks for watching Geekvolution. But
or end with jazz hands. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay to have things that bookend your video. But what we're really talking about when we say introduction, we're saying this is what we're reviewing, this is where I'm going with it, and for a conclusion, it's in final thoughts, this is what I think about it, and this to cap off everything I'm having to say. It's sort of like a movie or well, anything. It has rising and falling action. It's there is a beginning and an end, and there is a time for a first and a third act.
Yeah, so. If we want to talk about structure now, this is going to sound silly. It's a really good idea to have some kind of a structure. I think that it automatically gives you more credibility that your video was thought out, you know, even if it is. And I mean, like, I would have always thought this was a given, but a lot of people do videos that are much less streamlined than that. And it's okay. I just think that you immediately put yourself will have a better chance at putting yourself over the top if you look more professional than that. One thing that I think that people and then we should definitely talk about structure events, but I want to throw this up there before I forget. I think that
tack that up there.
I think that a lot of people have this sense that because so many people are doing this now, and there's not really like a proven like method that like you can kind of you know it's YouTube. You can do anything you want to as long as you're not using copyrighted material of any kind at all. You can do it any way you want to. That's absolutely true. But the problem with just this kind of like ethereal, I'm going to sit down and just talk at the camera without having really thought anything through first. The problem with that is everybody is doing that. You're not setting yourself apart enough by doing it that way, and so you immediately give yourself credibility by having a plan.
Yeah.
by having. I don't mean that everybody has to like have like a grueling outline. I would be hypocritical to say that. I don't do that with Vault. I think that part of the reason that that Vault works okay, and I'd love to write those. I just don't have time, which is the reason I don't write those. But I think that with something like that, it's I've been writing reviews for so long that the structure kind of is just in my head already, and so I can kind of I've kind of trained myself to the point where I can sit down and just in the structure kind of comes to me, but like, you know, those aren't perfect. In a perfect world, I would plan those out more than I do too. So I'm just saying, have a plan, know what you're gonna do.
I feel like if you sit down and start asking yourself, well, why do I feel this way and what supports that claim, that you will naturally feel like you're starting to get scatterbrained if you don't have an approach. You will start going, wow, I have a lot to say about this. It's not just a reaction piece. It is, I have things that I need to sort out, and I don't want to keep repeating myself. I don't want to beat a dead horse, which we're all guilty of from time to time, but because they're just so much fun to beat. But
well, how many times have you and I each said that in videos, right?
Yeah, beating dead horses are just fun. Oh wait, no, you mean you don't?
Anyway,
anyway, the point is that you need a structure, and it doesn't have to be. Some people, I'll say this, some people set out with a rigid structure. They say, okay, here's my introduction. They'll say, this is what I'm reviewing, this is the point that I intend to make with it. And then they have their supports or their claims and their supporting statements.
I had to call it the high school paper review.
And a lot of those people, and this kind of drives me nuts, it is a viable option, but it's not my style. I don't feel it's integrated. They'll have their introduction, they'll have a summary, and then they'll pull from that summary. And then they'll have their conclusion. So that kind of drives me nuts. I don't really like having a segregated summary. I like it to have interspersed parts of it. I don't mind just a little, this is what the movie about. It's a guy that went out and did this thing, and he's trying to get this thing, and now let's get in there and I'll get you the details during the thing.
But if I'm going to do something more complicated, like something like Rewind, sometimes, and I don't always do this depending on what kind of a movie it is or what I have to say, but sometimes I will open those by, at the end of my introduction, kind of giving you a little bit of a roadmap of where I'm going to go, and I think that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Where you're like the point, and the reason I think that can be good is that, okay, the point of what I'm going to focus on in this review is this, so that you know why I'm not tackling everything.
Right.
And I think that depending on the kind of reviews that you do, sometimes that's a good idea.
You know, I think there are multiple approaches. I think that, and I also think that it's a good idea to really look at your piece or the thing that you're reviewing and say what approach will best serve my opinion of this thing.
But like you said, at the very least, have a plan for what you're going to say at the very beginning and how you're going to cap that off at the end. Because really that will automatically put you over more non-structured reviews. Let me ask you this, Vince. How do people decide, who are new at this and haven't been doing this for a while, how do people decide when to go scripted and when not to? Those stylistic choices, what to put on the screen, things like that.
I feel like some people get confused about what needs to be scripted, what doesn't. I feel like people automatically just want to go off the cuff, and they just want to see what they can do. They say, I have these thoughts and these opinions, and I'm just going to talk about it. Well, I've found in the past that if I don't outline videos, they're kind of crappy, and fair enough. I feel like an outline is not necessarily essential, but at least beneficial.
I think it depends on who you are. I think that some people, somehow or rather, are organized enough in their heads that they don't entirely need an outline.
Some people are.
I don't get it. I can't do that. Eric really impresses me a lot of the time because he'll do these videos where it feels like you must have meticulously written down some of what you were going to say, and he doesn't. And I like, that's amazing. That's not me, though. I can't do that. So
yeah, outlines help me a lot. I don't necessarily feel like I need to be scripted all the time. I feel like some people, when they tend to meander and get off topic, and it's okay if their off topic is fun and entertaining, because of course entertaining is part of the game too.
And we need to talk about that, yeah.
So do be entertaining, and we'll get to that in a second. But you do have to be going somewhere, and if you tend to meander and you don't want to, and you have difficulty coming up with things out of the aether to say about this piece, have an outline. And if you're just a guy sitting in front of a computer, this might be annoying. So an outline would be beneficial instead of having something scripted. So
I also have discovered, and I never would have thought this before we started doing this, especially before reviewers. I have discovered that some people actually off the cuff is better for them, and scripting is not for them.
Yeah, exactly. Some people have monotone reading cadences, which is okay. You can still read out loud if you want to, but it's less entertaining.
Yeah, sure. Well, and it's not natural. Most people naturally want to hear something scripted and not think about the fact that it is. Naturally, like when you watch the news or when you listen to somebody talking on the radio, like you want it to be planned out, and you don't want people to, say every other word, like I have a tendency to do when I'm off the cuff. But you also...
I have a tendency to get off track, so don't feel too bad.
No, sure. And what you don't want is for you to be calling attention to the fact that you're reading the entire time. And so if you're if you're better off the cuff, I just think people need to practice. They need to try different things. We've had people who reviews the reviewers who started off one way and ended up another way, or tried it both ways, did different things throughout, just trying to get a good sense of it. I've seen people script part of a review and go off the cuff another review, and that's very impressive when you can't tell which one is which within a video. And we've had those where it's like, I don't know when they scripted and when they didn't. That's fascinating.
I really like... now, there are some people that will make a review, and I'll watch that, and I'll say, I feel like there's something that they have in them that did not get shared. I feel like they did okay as an off-the-cuff review. They made some decent points. They made some, they supported some of their claims. The trouble is that I know that guy had more interesting thoughts than what he shared. So if he'd made a scripted review, if he had an outline, then he would have at least gotten to everything. And if he had a scripted review, then maybe he would have had more detail. We would have gotten to the little nooks and crannies of his brain and see what he saw and had this, and felt the same thing that he did as he went through the review. And then we can decide whether we agree with him or not. But that's neither here nor there. So that's what every time I see somebody that I feel like they have more to say, but then just kind of let it go to the aether. It's okay. I don't need this in this review. It'll be all right. No, please tell me more.
I think the best... Well, and of course, remember that reviewers is often on a time limit, so it's a bit of a different thing. But but when you're just straight up doing a review... Yes. I think that the best advice that I can give when it comes to whether or not to script or not to, or what to put on the screen, because we didn't talk about that, but we don't have to belabor that. But I mean, are you going to have yourself on the screen? Are you going to just have pictures? Are you going to try video? If you can get away with video, dealing with copyright things and stuff like that, don't make any of those decisions based on laziness.
Yeah,
that's the best I can give you. If you're gonna go off the cuff, it needs to be because you're good at it, not because you don't feel like writing.
Right.
And if you find that you can't write naturally, you need to get really good at off the cuff. Or get really good at writing naturally. You know what I mean? One of those two things. But don't make those decisions based on how long it's going to take you to make your video.
Agreed. I don't even have anything to add to that. I just agree.
Where else do we need to go?
Something that's appearing on screen. If it is on screen, it should at least be engaging to some extent. If you're going to put one picture up there, make it relevant, make it interesting. I would recommend maybe putting a few different pictures up. Make it relevant to what you're saying at the time.
It's on YouTube. It's better if you can make it a video. Some people do. Some people have managed to amass followings without doing that. I think that that is becoming increasingly more difficult with the sheer number of people. Look, reviewing is becoming oversaturated on YouTube. It's definitely happening, and I'm not saying that means that you shouldn't do it. I'm saying that if you that if you do, you're going to have a harder time than you would have when we got started to get popular. If you're wanting to amass a following, I mean, if you're if you're looking for an audience, and I mean, like, people do things for different reasons. If you don't care how many people watch you, do it however you want to. But I'm just saying that if part of your goal is to amass any kind of an audience, you need to think about those sorts of things, because people aren't going to. Some people are going to leave if they click on a video and it's not actually a video. We do podcasts on YouTube where we just put up a picture because it's a podcast. That's just because it's the easiest place to host it. But we also have videos, so.
I think that's a good thing to say. It's okay to have a podcast on YouTube, whatever. I'm not saying that any of this stuff is the only way to do it.
Sure.
And
yeah.
In fact, I think from earlier something that we said was it's okay to intersperse your supporting claims from whatever piece you're reviewing, and it's okay to have your supporting claims in a big synopsis of the thing right at the beginning of your video. It's okay to do different approaches. It's just whatever you feel is the most appropriate or the most entertaining.
I do have some advice if you want to try to figure out how to do a still sort of thing and make it look kind of professional. There are a couple of really good approaches to this, and I've done both. One of them is, or at least that I think are good approaches. One of them is, if you're going to just have straight stills that aren't moving, where you're not doing any pans or anything, they need to change approximately every 10 to 15 seconds. I'm not kidding. I have discovered that that is, because I've tested this on myself and on other people, that seems to be the amount of time that a person will focus on a screen before it moves, where you get accustomed to the fact that it is a slideshow. 7 seconds is even better, but really 10 to 15. And if it lingers for any longer than that, or for very much longer than that, the person's eyes are naturally going to go off the screen, and eventually they might just start listening to it and not actually watch it, because it's no longer a visual thing. So that's what I used to do with Rewind when Rewind was stills. I would make sure that the stills changed at a quick enough clip that it kept your attention. Otherwise, if you want to have stills that are on screen for a little bit longer, if you for whatever reason can't get all the stills you need, there are a number of different techniques of how to get stills. And I can give people that information if they need it. You can always do pans, and Sony Vegas has a really easy way to do panning and to make it look really professional. I know that Adobe has good stuff for that too. Just whatever you happen to be using. You can't do it real well with Movie Maker, especially now. So you want to get decent. That's another thing. Get decent editing software if you're going to do actual video stuff. But anyway, you can do pans on things, and then it's a fluid video. You've got movement going on the whole time, but you're actually just using pictures, so it's not actually video, but it feels like video because you've got things moving. So those are the two.
Now, if you have just one picture that you're going to leave up the whole time, content really has to be stepped up.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, I mean, that's the thing, is
that's
that
a great point.
I look at some of these videos, and I could, what was it that Lex Luthor said? It was, you could, or Gene Hackman.
I don't know, I haven't talked to him lately, man.
But the quote from the movie was like, somebody can read a gum wrapper and unlock the keys of the universe, and some people can read War and Peace and think it's a simple adventure story or something like that.
Oh, yeah, he did say that.
And
that's a great line.
That's a terrific line. And the thing about that is that I can watch a video that has all the most beautiful editing in the world, and I was kind of a stickler about it last season. That
oh yes, you were.
That if it's not a review, I don't care. I don't care how pretty or how funny or how interesting your voice is.
Because you just made a video for a different contest at that point.
Yeah, it's not who reviews the recommenders; it's who reviews the reviewers. So,
and once again, this is specifically for people that are wanting to do reviews and analysis. If you want to make some other kind of video, that's your prerogative.
No, it is YouTube.
Of course,
you can make any video you want. We don't care.
And may I say, I watch things that aren't reviews. It's just that for what we're talking about reviews, and it needs to be that. You talked about earlier objectivity. And I think that reviews, and I've gotten this argument from people a lot, I feel like this is worth addressing. Reviews, by their very nature, are at least to a degree subjective. They have to be. You're giving opinion.
Yeah.
So they have to be. Where objectivity comes in is, and I heard Roger Ebert say this once, and I really like this. The idea that when you go sit down, and of course he's talking about movies because that's what he reviews. When you go see a movie, he says, you need to become an audience member. You need to not plant yourself above the rest of the audience that you're sitting with. I'm a reviewer and I know what I'm talking about. You're not reviewing it yet. At this point, you're just an audience member, and you need to sit down and experience it the way you would experience it if you weren't planning on writing an analysis or a critique or a review. And let yourself give it the benefit of the doubt, no matter what it is, to the best of your ability, because nobody can perfectly do this. I cannot give Twilight the benefit of the doubt, but I will do my level best. So if you see what I'm saying, so sit down and give it its due, give it its day, and I guarantee you are going to have a much more well considered and thoughtful review than if you just go in with this is my these are my preconceived notions about things, and if this movie doesn't immediately follow the mandates of what I know a good movie is supposed to do, or whatever it is that it happens to be, then it's bad. It just you have to take it on its own terms from the get-go.
Yeah. I once had a friend say to me, "What movie do you consider the standard? What do you think other movies should be judged by?" And what I said was by what it's trying to achieve. I'm not going to judge a movie against another movie. What's the point of that? I'm not going to judge Animal House against, say, Pulp Fiction. They're two different kinds of
different
movies.
Things, yeah. They're entirely different merits. I mean, at that point, you might as well not say it's a movie versus a movie. It's a comedy versus a neo-noir, I guess. But whatever it is we're talking. Yeah.
So that's troubling to me. It's okay to have referential reviews. It's okay to say.
Sure.
That's very academic. Even say, well, this is what Lippert has to say versus Johnson, and this writer said this thing about whatever Sherlock Holmes or whoever
Those
Shakespeare.
Those things provide context,
yeah.
As does comparing them to something else that is similar in some way.
It's okay to reach out for other opinions and comparing
being
things
as fair as
against
you can
each
be
other.
on it. Yeah.
I mean, for example, here's an actual example. You might be reviewing the use of slow motion, and you'd say, well, this is how it's used in the modern times, or with movies like 300 and Watchmen, and this is how it's used in closer to it's becoming a commonplace. You look at things like Sam Peckinpah, and say, well, this is what it was in the 60s, this is what it is today, and this is what it's become, and this is the thing that you're trying to say using that slow motion. So it's okay to reference.
Context is huge, yeah.
Exactly.
And we
historical
always
context.
And we always preach having historical what is the word I'm looking for? Why can't I think? Well, not just context, but just understanding that the way things are now aren't necessarily the way they were when the thing that you made. Historical perspective.
Yeah, that's word.
That's important.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
we do entire challenges about historical perspective.
I don't even feel that's a youth mistake a lot of the time. I feel like that's being swept up in pop culture mistake.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there's some people that would say, well, you didn't like this because, or I can't like this because it's not something of the modern style. Well, that's not fair.
That's not saying that your standards have to change or that they have to be lowered because you're talking about something that is old. It's not like you have to give everything that's older than a certain age a pass. That's not what I'm saying. But you can't look at something 30 years ago. I don't know a good example right off the top of my head, but you can't look at something from 30 years ago and then compare it to something that came out last year and go, it doesn't live up to what I think the standards are set by this movie that came out 30 years after it. You know what I mean?
I once had a friend say to me, the original Dawn of the Dead's not as good as the new Dawn of the Dead. And I said, why not? And they said, well, the effects aren't nearly as good. And I said, now that's ridiculous. You can't judge an old movie, especially an old indie movie, based on its effects.
Well, that's to assume that the effects are the only thing that's important, and perhaps they've improved on that. But then the question is it is the story worthwhile? How's the acting? How's the stuff that you can control at both in both time periods? Right?
Exactly.
You can't expect modern pacing in an older film.
Exactly. And you can't expect the modern sensibility. You can't go back to the 50s and expect there to be modern camera placement and editing and modern acting techniques. It's going to be a little different. I mean, that's one of the big things if you go back to earlier periods of film. It's just a camera just pointing at the scene. And every once in a while, they'll move it around. But we really didn't get to more of this modern sensibility until around about the early 70s, late 60s.
Late 60s, yeah. That's what I would say. Well, Vince, I used the word condensed earlier, which I guess was not the right word because we've been on this for a while. But is there anything major that we missed? Just in big, broad sweeping pieces of advice, and how do we kind of put people's minds at ease a little bit? I mean, like I feel like we've kind of Vince and I have a tendency to go toward the details of stuff, and to really get at the nitty gritty. Hopefully this doesn't turn anybody off the reviewing. It should be a really, really fun experience,
Yeah. I mean, I think the bottom line is that reviewing is the delivery of an opinion. And all we're trying to say is that opinion is based on things that you already know, essentially. You have an opinion because of A, B, and C. All I'm trying to get you guys to say is, what is A, B, and C, and why do I believe it?
Yeah. I think it's also important, and I didn't say this, we talk about historical perspective. Sometimes historical perspective comes from gasp, shaw, and awe research. And I think it might be important to mention, you don't have to read entire books or read every wiki article you can find on every actor in a film or everybody that was related to something. At the same time, if you watch something and you go, I'm not entirely sure what they were getting at with this thematically or with a particular scene where you feel sometimes you can, a lot of the time you can tell, and again I'm talking about movies, but this happens with other sorts of things too, where maybe you'll look at something and you'll go, I feel disconnected from this culturally. That may require a little bit of research. You might want to take a look for a little bit. For instance, I just got finished writing my review for Danger Diabolic. And that is it's a film that came out in 1968. It's an Italian film. And I would not have written a proper review for that if I hadn't done some research on what the culture, and especially the counterculture, was in Italy at the time that film came out, because it was speaking to a certain group of people that I don't fall in. Well, really nobody does, because that was 40 years ago. But you see what I'm getting at. Sometimes you don't have entirely the toolbox that you need so I mean,
I think it's okay to go out there, especially since it's information age, we have the internet.
Yeah.
To go out there and say...
It's easier than it's ever been, you might as well.
What's the deal with this? Mm-hmm. For example, I watched Princess Mononoke once and I said, wow, I thought that was a really interesting movie and all the spirits was a really interesting idea. And I had somebody say to me, when I first saw that, I had no idea what that was even about. And I said, well, the trees have spirits and the grass and the forest and blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, I didn't realize what that was, and they said, I realized years later that after I'd studied Shintoism what it was about, and I said, oh, well, I guess I did see that movie after I took a world religions course and figured out what Shintoism was, or at least I think it's Shintoism. I might have the name backwards.
Your opinion will, and I hate to say it like this, but your opinion will be a lot less valid if it's not informed enough for certain things, Yeah. And again, don't let that scare you away. Sometimes it's worth just a quick wiki search if you're not sure about something, especially cultural stuff like that, or political things, Yeah,
it's not. I feel like some of you might be getting a little scared. The idea that, oh my gosh, I have to know everything. No, it's okay to review something based on its own merits. I do feel that it's not necessary, but it is worthwhile to look things up about something.
And again, it gives you credibility, because part of the point of reviewing things on YouTube or on the internet in general is to give people information as much as it is an opinion. I would say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's part of the credibility thing, to say this is why I think this. Sometimes your opinion of something is not just about what's in the movie, but how it would impact somebody culturally. So why is this so heavy-hitting right now? For example, I can't even say that, but some of the profanity and some of the things that you would see in the In Cold Blood that came out in, I think, 67, some of that stuff is really shocking for the time period. Today we see things that are less shocking, or that are more grotesque, because we're just used to
that
it.
wouldn't shock us as much.
Exactly.
But you got to think of what they were thinking of when they saw that. Again, based on the fact that nothing else had come, things that you're thinking of didn't come out yet. You know, you got to take your timeline and put it here.
Yeah.
Because that's where it is now.
And there are things that came out back in the day that you watch now and you say, wow, that's really shocking. Oh my God, that guy's smoking on a plane.
Vince, there's one more thing that we didn't bring up earlier that I think we should just mention very briefly, and that is, and I say briefly because I know you'll want to run off with this, and that is how much synopsis is necessary.
I feel like I can condense this.
Go ahead.
Synopsis is only necessary for as much as it supports your points. So
Can I quickly
disagree?
Disagree just quickly. I'm sorry. This is what we do. Maybe someday we'll do a video on how to correctly debate in a video. No, I'm kidding. Let me ask you. Let me just throw this out there really quick. I think it entirely depends on the intention of your video. I think that if you're putting out a video that is intended for people that people are supposed to watch it, whether or not they've seen the thing, I think that automatically requires a certain amount of synopsis right away, regardless of just backing up your points. The problem is the organization becomes wonky if you just only do synopsis with your points, because you're not going to have any context for what the thing is in the first place. You know, if I were to start talking about Hunger Games, but I didn't open with, you know, these kids get picked up and they all have to fight each other and it's this big, you know, scary reality show thing, and I just started critiquing it, people might be like, okay, well, I see what your opinion is, but I don't know what the thing's about, so your opinion doesn't mean anything to me.
Even if you have things that support their out of context. So
anyway, that's the only reason I wanted to say it.
That makes sense. I would agree with that.
I don't think you need 3 minutes of it in a 6-minute review. I want to say that. I know that you think that modern reviewers tend to have more synopsis than they do anything else.
Yeah, and that's annoying. Because it's what they're saying is that I've created a review specifically for people who haven't seen the movie, and at that point the point of analysis is irrelevant, because then you're ruining it. So I would rather create a review for somebody who's seen the movie and then move on from there.
Yeah, but there's room for both.
Yeah, there is room for both.
And not all reviews are analysis, and I think it's really important to mention that. You know, a lot of, especially if you review something brand new, you know, a lot of people get more out of, should I go see it? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So don't tell me too much. And so exactly. I think a certain amount of synopsis has to be there.
Fair enough. I would agree with that. I mean, there's a place in the sun for everything. And if you're doing analysis, summary can be a little less heavy-handed and a little more dispersed throughout.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think most people are less likely to do analysis than they are straight reviews, so...
Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you're reviewing a new movie that's, should I go see this, it's perfectly fine to have a little summary space to say, well, this is what the movie's about, and then you have these cool things about it. Why? Because I'm trying to get you to see this movie.
So we didn't disagree at all. It's just that you're assuming more people are going to do analysis than they are. I think more people are going to do straight-up review. It's just that you and I are more analysis guys, see, so... Yeah. So everybody, thanks a lot for watching this extended episode of Geeks Not Nerds, talking about reviewing. And if you have any questions for us, or any further ideas that you might want to submit to people, if you want to give people advice based on your own reviews or things that you've done, feel free to do that in the comments. That's totally cool. And also, if there's something you'd like us to talk about in a future video, leave that in the comments as well. As always, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to watch who reviews the reviewers. I mean, support your local comic book store.
Thanks for watching.